Welcome to What Is It About the Weather, a podcast where we explore the many ways that weather intertwines itself into our lives. I'm your host, Mark Schleinig, and this week, weather wishes. Now, on top of that, I'm going to try not to sneeze. I had a bit of a sneeze fit before I got started today, and hopefully that's not going to carry over into the recording. But woke up this morning. Now, this podcast, the earliest you could listen to it is 2021. Technically, it was recorded right before then. I know some people, it's interesting. This time of year you watch, I don't know if you watch YouTube or listen to podcasts. A lot of people do these year-end episodes, get recordings in before the holiday season is upon us. And while I try to work around that schedule, I don't necessarily try to avoid it either. So I'm in the midst. I'm not recording it, like I said, after the beginning of the year, because I don't usually record day of posting. But I woke up this morning, day before the new year, rain on my windows. And I was thinking back to last week's episode about pink noise. And of course now everywhere I read, one of those wonderful things of once you start searching, I'm seeing all these things related to pink noise and how weather can influence that. But it was just one of those things that made me think, what's the right thing to enter the new year with? I have these lists of episodes. Sometimes I feel better about doing them than others. Sometimes they take more research than others. But sometimes I just, you find yourself, I think we all do, not in the mood to do what's on the agenda. So I'm going a little off agenda this week. But like I said, part of it is just I woke up in, I guess, my pink noise mode. And I wanted to be a little more spontaneous with this week's episode. And also, I definitely had some weather impacts this week. Went out for a bike ride. It's funny, I was doing some stuff, and I always, you've heard me talk about it before, about the impact wind plays on riding a bike. This week I saw it firsthand. One of my holiday gifts this year was a set of power meter pedals. And for those that don't know it, it's a way to measure on your bicycle how effective you are, right? So the idea is pretty simple, that if you look at how fast you're going, well, there's so many things that can influence that. Are you on a hill? Or do you have a headwind? Do you have a tailwind? Those different things. So trying to gauge yourself, you can over the same territory, from ride to ride. Have you gotten faster or slower, those sort of things. But a more effective, consistent measure is what look at your power output. So how much energy are you putting into the bicycle? And what these pedals do is they tell you that. So it measures essentially when my foot pushes down on the pedal, how much force I'm putting on the bicycle to move it forward. Well, this week I had a situation where the amount of power I was putting in the pedal, because I have a little computer on the front of the bike that tells you that instantaneously. I have that information available to me. It was something more akin to climbing up a huge mountain or going tremendously fast down a straightaway, and I wasn't going very far at all. And it really had to do with wind. And it was kind of funny because I was able to capture that. I had kind of a video camera on, and I was able to catch a still shot. Maybe I'll use that as this week's photo. I was able to capture a still shot of lots of power and not so much forward momentum. No, it wasn't like I was standing still, but it was a reminder that weather was impacting me this week. Now, other side of the world, over Mongolia, there was a huge high pressure system with lots of cold air, and it probably, and I'll put a link in the show notes. You can kind of read about it. If it verifies, it'll be the strongest high pressure ever recorded. And it's meaningful in that we always talk about, you always hear stories about low pressure system because it's, maybe you have a tropical cyclone. That's where we tend to see the lowest pressures. But this is almost the reverse of that situation. And it has its own real impacts. It impacts those people directly. It impacts the weather downstream, just like any sort of weather event. But we've talked about things where high pressure can have influences on your body and other things around. And so it could have pushed that to extremes. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I haven't seen a lot of follow-up because high pressure you often think about as being clear weather. But it can also mean very intense weather from, super cold air, and be associated with a high pressure system, that sort of thing. So maybe there'll be some stories. I'll try to follow up and see if anything comes out of that that's more relatable than just high pressure, because I know that doesn't mean a lot to everybody. All right. enough of me babbling on about weather itself. Let's get on to the non-weather. So like I said, what I wanted to think about was not so much one of these, episodes where we talk about, that's what we do. We always talk about weather in ways that maybe it's not relatable, or maybe you haven't thought about it, or maybe it makes you think. I spent a lot of time with hopefully getting you to ponder a little bit about how weather touches all the things that are going on around you. Right? The non-obvious things, like I'm waking up, I'm looking at rain. It's very obvious what's going on. It's wet outside. Now the construction site's still doing the construction thing. I'm looking literally down on the street right now. People are walking by. Not as busy as it might have been on a non-rainy day. But life's going on. Windshield wipers are, back and forth on cars, all that sort of thing. But it made me start wondering, what are my wishes for you? Instead of thinking about weather, instead of that kind of conscious level thought process that I encourage you to do, and I'm still always going to encourage you to do that. But what about more just kind of a behind that first layer, little subconscious thought processes or interactions with our body, right? Where we're not actively engaged, not actively thinking about it. And this is kind of a follow-on to that whole pink noise episode, right? If we're thinking about weather stimulating the brain in that situation, kind of like it did with me this morning. I woke up, rain, it put me in that mode of, okay, got some things to get done before the year end. What am I going to crunch through today? But stepping back from that and going, all right, let's take weather as a topic and say, what do I want if I were to wish certain things for everybody out there, for the challenges we face in 2020, to make 2021 the best year it could be for everybody, but still have it be, weather related. So I thought of 3 things that I wanted to leave everybody with as we push out of 2020 and we enter 2021 that I want for you. Of course, I want it for me too and those around me, but if I could wish for 3 weather-related ideas to propel you, hopefully there are also things that aren't just about weather, but just life in general. So let's cover these 3, and then I'm going to let you get on with 2021. The first, nourishment. All right. Now, there's the obvious thing about nourishment. I want there to be ample spring rains and summer sun and all the things that we need to create great crops, to give us all the plants and food we need, that supplies the whole ecosystem with the nutrients it needs for fish to grow and animals to grow and us to be healthy, all those sort of things. So that nourishment. And also, just the right parts of our body, right, that are physically nourished. But also on the flip side, I want weather hopefully to give you that mental nourishment. Now it can be with things like the podcast that make you think, maybe think a little outside the box or think creatively. But also, however, weather makes you feel constructive, encourages you to put thoughts into it. Like I said, I woke up this morning to rain and it made me start thinking, okay, what do I need to get done? What do I want to get done? And, even along those, one of the things I came across when I was doing that whole pink noise episode was some research that shows, we've talked about this before. A lot of people this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere suffer from depression because they have a seasonal disorder less, the speculation is less light. It's a little colder. Feel a little more trapped in, can't do the normal things you might want to do outside. Well, for me, I think I suffer from the opposite, which is, and this is a real thing. So the studies, a small group of us people hate just the opposite when it's just sunny all the time. Or maybe it's probably because it gets a little warm, right? But I look forward to this rain. It nourishes me mentally, puts me at ease, makes me happier. As weird as that sounds, rainy day can make me happy. And now, don't get me wrong, I don't want a bunch of rainy days in a row, but I think of it as a cleansing mechanism. I think of the rain as cleaning what's going on around me. And so for me mentally, it's a very good thing. So both physical and mental nourishment, that's my first wish for everybody, is that weather somehow provides those opportunities for you amongst the rest of your life. All right, number 2, connection. And this can be as simple as with others. I genuinely hope we can all get back to the point where sometimes, whether it's a random stranger that we're standing next to on the street, in the metro, at a restaurant, in the park, at a museum, that somehow weather can bridge that gap. It's the great opener, right? Boy, it's sure hot outside today. Boy, I haven't seen snow like that in ages. Wow, that was some rain. Whatever it might be. It provides opportunity without judgment, without being politically charged, socially charged. It's just, for so many people, it's that neutral conversation starter. So I hope we get back to a place in 2021 where we can do more of that. But I don't want it to be just a connection with other people. I think a lot of people in 2020 had an opportunity to be outside doing more exercise, but more in nature, as we looked for opportunities to do things that provided the distancing that we were asked to provide, to achieve from one another. That I hope weather provides you opportunities to connect still with your surroundings. I think some people had forgotten what it was like to maybe go out on a canoe or be out on the lake by themselves, or just with someone very close to them. Take a hike in the woods. Go on a bike ride. Take a walk. But do it maybe in a setting that it's not necessarily in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. So I think it does provide that opportunity with the right weather to decompress. Maybe it's skiing. Maybe this time of year you like being outside, or being in an environment that's not bound up, right, by the everyday life, the things that we know we have to do. So connection. I hope that weather gives you an opportunity to connect with others around you, both those you know and don't know, as well as to the world in which we live, things you already know and that you don't. Number 3, opportunity. It seems pretty straightforward, right? To do the things you enjoy. Now this one, a little thought in here. I don't want you to think too deep, but an example of this is, let's say you love to go fishing in the summertime. Well, for it to be great fishing, you might need it to be a rainy spring. And so in the spring, you may be going, tired of the rain. But maybe look forward, look beyond the short term. So these other things we talked about were very now, this connection thing. Connection's kind of in that real-time moment sort of thing. So we need the weather to be right enough of the time. But what we know certainly is that for us to get all the things, the nourishment as well, that we need the rain. We need the sun. We need all these contrasting things that nourish not just us, but the world around us. You love to photograph spring flowers. You love to have apple cider in the fall. You love to go snowshoeing in the middle of winter, whatever it is. But to get to those things, to have those opportunities, sometimes we need the precursor periods to give us stormy weather, or snowy weather, or warm weather, or windy weather, whatever it might be. So may weather give you those opportunities as we go forward in the year. But I hope also that it's not just opportunity for doing the things that you've always loved to do, but maybe also opportunity for some new things. With 2020 being a reminder of not being able to do many of the things that were familiar or comfortable, we found new things. But I think that provides opportunity for kind of constant growth and a refreshing, an enjoyment factor. So I want weather to give you that opportunity as well. As I was riding into those winds, right, that weren't good for doing the things I like to do, weren't providing me the right opportunity in that moment. I guess if I was doing everything headed downwind, well, it wasn't that lucky. It was in a long stretch where I didn't have that. It could have provided me opportunity to go way faster than I was used to doing. But what I came across, let's get to the point here, is here I was in that moment going, a lot of wind, I don't want to work, this isn't great, but found myself looking out in the ocean. And there they were. These kites, right? Not little kites, but with people attached to the other end and on boards and in the water. So these people were kite surfing or kiteboarding. I don't know the right phrase for it. I'm sure I'm messing that up. But I'd seen it before. I hadn't really ever thought about it. But in that moment, I was going, wow, weather really matters here. Because I'd remembered a few days before I'd watched somebody when it hadn't been as windy trying to do it, and it looked like it wasn't working very well. And I'm going, oh, that's not so cool. The wind was enough to pick up the kite, but it wasn't enough to pull up that person, to create pressure against them to move them forward. But here it was. These people were out there having a blast. It looked like cold water. It didn't matter. They had wetsuits on. They were doing their thing, and they were out there enjoying it. Out on the waves, taking advantage of something as simple as wind. To have fun, to do something. And in that moment, I thought, that's something I want to try. That's something I want to do. And so now what I can do is I can add it to the list of things, A, that when I first figure out how to do it, I don't want to do it on a super windy day. But I think once I'm good at it, I'm going to look for winds and, I'll know what the range is. And I can say, yeah, this is not good weather to go fish on the shore because the sand will be kicking up everywhere. But man, if I want to go break over some waves or do something that wind is a benefit, that's an example of opportunity. An opportunity to leverage weather in a way that provides me new fun and loud noises outside and just freedom that I wouldn't have had before. So I genuinely hope, that's just an example, but I hope in 2021, maybe you too want to try kiteboarding or kite surfing or whatever the proper term is. But I hope you find situations where weather gives you opportunity to do the things you love and to find new joy and new challenges and new excitement and feel refreshed. May 2021 give all that to us, but may it be weather touched, right? Let me know. During the course of the year, just touch base. If weather somehow gives you a moment of joy or opportunity or connection, let me hear about it. Because we all know there's so much more to weather, right? Than just the raindrops that are falling on my window or the wind that was blowing me out on the bike that kind of goes by without us thinking. It does provide us all these things, all these opportunities, all these benefits. to make life so much more. And in 2021, that's what I want for all of us, is the life to be that much more. But I really hope weather's a part of it. All right, 2021, as we head into this, came across an interesting thing that had absolutely nothing to do about weather. One of those kind of viral things. And I think I found one of those sources. I'm never sure if you find the real source. I put a link in the show notes of this person that put together, it's kind of a chart, like an eye chart, but a very complicated one. Think of it as, 30 lines of just letters, right? And you're supposed to go in and pick out the first 4 words you see, and that's supposed to tell you the things you'll be looking for in 2021. Well, of course, that's biased because the words in there are certain words, but I think it tells you a lot about how you, when you see something that just looks like a gobbledygook, how you go about processing it, because I think the words are grouped. I don't want to taint your results too much. But what I found interesting was how I was in there trying to find weather-related words. One of them was roughly weather-related, not my first 4, but as I was kind of scanning through it, and a word that I tried to create in my mind that wasn't in there. But it was around the first word I did actually find, so I guess it's somewhat related. That I wanted to see a word that was weather-related. I don't know, maybe my mind's just a little too much on weather sometimes. All right. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can go do that for fun. Enjoy 2021 the best you can. We still got a lot of challenges associated with COVID. I don't want to dwell on that too much because it's very real that we deal with it. We do the best for those around us. But I also hope, genuinely hope, that we're able during the course of this year as the vaccine rolls out, and that we start to see what would be a difference going forward, and hopefully we can take some of the things that we've put into us in 2020 and shuffle them out in 2020 in a way that's constructive. But think about the wishes I put forward. May they touch you. May they connect with you. May they provide you those opportunities and that nourishment you need to have an optimal 2021. That's what I want for everybody. You and me both. I think we've earned it maybe. So let's go out there and enjoy the weather and start thinking about it again. And I'll get back to that regularly scheduled stuff next week. But if you're going to touch base, what is it about the weather? gmail.com. What is about the weather on Twitter? Mark_Jelonic on Twitter. However you want to get hold. You can. And let me know how you found out that there's much more to weather than the weather itself.